from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Good evening, and welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Stefan Diawis, and joining me tonight is my co-anchor, Sharon Mascarinas.
Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. A 5-hour power cut today as well. Minister Basil Rajapaksa acquitted from the Samurthi case. 44 deaths due to motor accidents last week. Female soldiers are being used for the first time to remove landmines. 8 persons killed due to heavy rain and floods in Australia.
On our top story for tonight, as the conflict continues between Russia and Ukraine, talks are being held at the border of Belarus.
Talks between Ukraine and Russia are now underway on the border of Belarus. Ukraine claims its main goals are an immediate ceasefire and with the withdrawal of Russian troops. Meanwhile, Russia urges to reach an agreement that benefits both sides.
Ukraine's military has claimed that the pace of Russia's assault has slowed. Reports have indicated that they had not been able to advance any of its major objectives during the last 5 days of its invasion of Ukraine. However, the northeastern city of Cherniv faced heavy shelling overnight, but remains in Ukrainian hands. Russia now has at least 50% of its estimated 150,000 strong invasion force inside Ukraine. Ukraine forces are reportedly putting up strong resistance to invading Russian forces as they surround and bomb the capital, Kiev. Analysts suggested that Russian military may have been caught off guard by the level of pushback by Ukrainian fighters.
Я в долгу не остался, блядь, ребята, не остался в долгу. Вот что снег, блядь.
Подивись, что это, сука! Майор ебаный, нахуй! Майор, нахуй! Майор!
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said he believes the next 24 hours will be a crucial period for his country as Ukrainian troops and citizens who have taken up arms continue to fight invading Russian forces. Ukraine's major cities remain under attack from Russian forces invading from the north, east and south. Assaults are taking place both on the ground, with street fighting reported in a number of cities, and from the air, with major shelling attacks damaging buildings and causing injuries and loss of life in some cases. On the 5th day of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, people in Kiev are emerging from their homes after a weekend-long curfew, following the high-level talks which are taking place between Kiev and Moscow at the Ukraine-Belarus border. In the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, the world's biggest plane, Ukraine's Antonov 225, was destroyed in Russian strike. Ukraine said that the plane was destroyed at the Antonov airport in Gostomel near Kiev. The aircraft was unique to the world. At 84 meters long, it could transport up to 250 tons of cargo at a speed of up to 850 kilometers per hour. It had been named Mrya, which means dream in Ukrainian. Ukraine estimated that restoring the Mrya would cost over $3 billion and could take over 5 years. It had also landed in Sri Lanka. More than 360,000 people have fled Ukraine into Poland and other neighboring countries in the wake of Russia's invasion, the UN Refugee Agency has said. People are waiting up to 40 hours at the border crossing to Poland. Around 45,000 refugees have entered Poland in the last 15 hours, according to the latest figures from the UNHRC. Cars have been backed up for several kilometers at some border crossings as authorities in Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania and Moldova mobilized to receive Ukrainians and provide shelter, food and legal help.
И папа будет продавать что-то, будет помогать нашим героям, нашим войскам будет помогать, может даже будет воевать.
The safety of Sri Lankan medical students studying in Belarus was discussed today.
Minister Dalasala Perumal says that the security of the Sri Lankan medical students in Belarus has been consolidated. More than 1,300 medical students are pursuing studies in Belarus at the moment. Minister Dalasala Perumal said that many parents have been talking to him regarding the safety of 1,340 of their children studying in Belarus. The minister further said that he has 2 telephone calls to Foreign Minister G.L. Peiris currently in Geneva City last night in this connection. The minister added that the president is extremely sensitive on the safety of the students, and the minister further said that they are clearly aware that these medical students will not be subjected to any danger.
Many areas of Sri Lanka experienced power cuts today. Let's take a quick look at the power update.
The Public Utilities Commission has granted permission to the Ceylon Electricity Board for a 5-hour power cut today as well. The CEB says that the discontinuation of power was being carried out under several stages. Power cuts have been carried out for a duration of 4 hours and 40 minutes in the A, B and C zones. In other zones, a 5-hour and 15-minute power cut is being implemented. Consumers are able to receive information from the website of the Public Utilities Commission to find out the zone they belong to. Power cuts were not implemented at night time yesterday and the day before. The reason being is relatively low demand for electricity on weekends in comparison to weekdays. Consumers have been subjected to difficulties due to shortage of fuel in some filling stations in the island today. Long queues were seen in such locations. Minister Udaya Gammanpilla has expressed opinion in this regard at a ceremony of the Ministry of Power and Energy today. Minister Udaya Gammanpilla said that in Sri Lanka there is actually no fuel or power crisis. The prevailing crisis is a foreign exchange shortage. Last year, Sri Lanka had spent $21 billion for imports. Only 2.8 billion rupees had been spent on fuel imports. Minister Gammanpilla added that what the government should do now is to identify priorities. Accordingly, importation of all not so important commodities should be stopped in order to facilitate the importation of essential commodities such as fuel and medicine. The minister further said that Sri Lanka's oil supplies are also adversely affected by the Ukraine-Russia problem. Currently, the price of a barrel of oil has passed $100. He also said that the Western countries have imposed sanctions on Russia, which is mainly supply of oil and gas.
Here are some opinions expressed by government and opposition politicians regarding the existing power crisis. Samagi Jana Balawegya parliamentarian Nalin Bandara said that the situation at the power station has turned to the worst. He added that the diesel-powered power stations are receiving diesel at retail price rates. Therefore, these stations are in an uncertain state in generating electricity. Minister Pavitra Vaniarachi said that in the year 2014, when she was functioning as the minister in charge of power and energy, she had made all preparations for the construction of a 900 megawatt power station with joint collaboration of the governments of Sri Lanka and India. The minister added that even lands for the construction had been acquired. Tender documents had also been processed. She added that, however, a change of government had taken place at this instance. The previous regime, after coming into power, had abandoned the project. She also said that before relinquishing duties, she had completed 75% of work in the Broadlands project. However, the previous regime had failed even to complete the remaining 25% of work during their 5-year tenure. Minister Pavitra Vaniarachi also said 75% of work in the Uma Oya project had also been completed, but the previous government had abandoned this project as well. She added that this makes it clear who is responsible for the current crisis.
In other stories for you, the 49th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council began in Geneva, Switzerland today. The Kaduala Magistrate Court has ordered to acquit Minister Basil Rajapaksa for all charges in the Samurdhi case today.
The case had been filed by the Financial Crime Division of previous government of good governance. The FCID had filed the case in the year 2015, charging that misappropriation of funds had taken place due to payment of gratuities appropriately to the employees attached to the then Ministry of Samurdhi, who were subjected to voluntary retirement. The case was heard for the period of 6 years. The Attorney General has informed the courts that the payment of gratuities had taken place legally according to the institutional regulations. The magistrate, upon consideration of all facts, has freed Minister Basil Rajapaksa from the charges.
Meanwhile, the Presidential Commission implementing recommendations of the Commission appointed to look into acts of political vengeance has commenced duties at the Committee Hall of the BMICH in Colombo today. The responsibility of the Commission is to implement the recommendations of the Presidential Commission appointed under the leadership of the Supreme Court Judge Upali Aberatna. Identification of a group who have received summons also took place today. More than 100 persons have received summons. They included former politicians and government officials. Parliamentarians Rajitha Senaratna, Patali Champika Ranavaka, former Deputy Minister Karu Paranavithana, former parliamentarian Hirunika Premachandra have also appeared before the Commission. MP Ranjan Ramanayaka was also brought from prison. Chairman of the Commission is Supreme Court Judge Priyantha Jayavardhana. The other members are Supreme Court Judge K. Kumudini Vikramasinghe and Judge of the Appeals Court Balendra Sasi Mahindran. Further activities of the Commission will resume on the 10th of next month. Now, a sum of $4.7 million has been set aside as compensation for the fishermen who have been deprived of direct incomes due to the destruction of the ship Express Pearl at sea near the Colombo harbour.
State Minister of Fisheries Kanchana Vijayasekara said at a media briefing in Colombo today that handing over of compensation under the second stage of the program is to be conducted within the next few days. Vessel Express Pearl had caught fire near the port of Colombo on the 20th of May last year. All relevant sections were involved in minimizing the damages caused due to the accident. Fishing activities have been banned in an extent of 457 square kilometre sea area after the disaster. In addition, fishing was prohibited in the Negombo Lagoon from the 20th of May to the 12th of June last year. 15,032 fishermen have lost direct income. These fishermen will be compensated under 4 stages. In addition, calculation of a comprehensive compensation for the destructions of the environment and the fishing industry is presently taking place in parallel to the compensation procedure.
You're watching the news live on Rupavahini, and in other stories, the national television has received information regarding conducting of a successful fruit cultivation in an extent of around 10 acres using only organic fertilizer. Speciality of this farming is that the owners of the cultivation is Civil Defence Task Force of Galloya, producing themselves the required quantities of organic fertilizer. We have seen how pawpaw and banana were cultivated successfully in the land. The task force says that they have received the highest harvest of high quality. Meanwhile, a traditional farmer in Beruela has maintained an extremely prosperous vegetable and fruit cultivation in an abandoned paddy field using only organic fertilizer. Another full organic farming was witnessed in the paddy fields of Katuahene in Nagolagama. The farmers say that they are receiving a harvest of 90 of paddy from an acre.
Today's PMD News inquires into the program being implemented to further strengthen the relationship between the police and the general public in order to create a society where everybody could live without fear and suspicion. Upon inquiry by a media person regarding measures being undertaken for a closer relationship between the two groups, police media spokesman and senior DIG Ajit Rohana has responded by saying that the program to expand the number of police stations in the island to 600 is being carried out. Presence of police activities helps to reduce the number of crimes. Therefore, they are increasing the number of police stations with the aim of implementing the law. This also helps the people to fulfill their requirements in daily life. In response to another question from the presenter regarding the measures being implemented in addition to the traditional methods, said that the imposition of fines for traffic offences is being carried through electronic medium. In addition, the internet is also being used in this regard. The police media spokesman further said that the police stations established in many parts of the island are now open for a more closer and efficient service to the general public. With tourist arrivals now continuing in the country, a new circular has been issued. Deputy Director General of Health Services, Dr. Hemantha Herath, briefs about the new circular issued regarding passenger arrivals to Sri Lanka, the importance of adhering to health guidelines with regards to public gathering and consequences of misjudging COVID-19 to a virus fever.
A new circular has been issued by the Director General Health Services with regards to the requirement to obtain a negative PCR test taken within 72 hours prior to the departure from the people who are arriving in Sri Lanka. And according to the new circular, anyone who has obtained the recommended doses of WHO accepted vaccines are exempted from this requirement. Those who have obtained the recommended doses and passed 14 days after getting the vaccine are the people who are exempted from this requirement. And recommended dose means that depending on the vaccine, most of the vaccines require 2 doses as the recommended vaccines, and only one vaccine, Johnson & Johnson vaccine, is single dose vaccine. So that is the number that we consider as recommended dose, and anyone who has the proof of such recommended dose, they will be exempted from this requirement. And also certain other specific requirements are mentioned in that one, and these need to be referred to the circular because it's too lengthy to discuss in a forum like this. However, this is a practice that has been adopted by most of the other countries, and therefore and scientifically valid reasons are there for taking such decision, and we all request all the authorities and others to adhere to the current guidelines until and unless it is updated or revised. With regards to the mass gatherings organized by the people at this moment, again, we know that still the situation is not under control 100%. So therefore, it is extremely important to adhere to the health guidelines as and when mass gatherings are organized, like in the form of entertainment or any other form where a large number of people are gathered. Unless they adhere to the health guidelines, there is an extremely high risk of spreading the COVID-19 among them, and this will cause, probably for those who participate at these meetings are apparently healthy and young people, and they might not get major problems. But if someone acquires the disease from such a place, and if they carry the disease or infection to their homes, where at-risk people are there, like those who are elderly people and those who are suffering from chronic illnesses, may get complications, and therefore it is extremely important that anyone who is organizing such events and anyone who is participating in such events to adhere to the health guidelines and make sure that the event will not be conducive to the spread of the infection. Because of the current presence of a virus or viral fever, some people are thinking that there is a virus fever is also going on and therefore no need to adhere to the health guidelines because in addition to the COVID, this virus fever there. But I want to emphasize that this viral fever, so any virus infection, respiratory infections are also prevented by adhering to the health guidelines stipulated for COVID-19. So therefore, it is important even for the prevention and protecting yourself from the viral fever, adhering to the health guidelines such as properly wearing the face mask and keeping the social distance as well as frequent hand washing will protect you from even from viral infection. So therefore, I would like to request the people to ensure to the health guidelines to the maximum so that you will be protected both from COVID-19 as well as virus or viral infection that is prevalent at this moment.
Omicron is what everyone is talking about, but the chances of getting reinfected with Omicron is also high. However, here's the latest on this story. The BA2 COVID-19 variant, a subvariant of the Omicron variant, reportedly creates a different COVID-19 symptoms compared to the early strains. The BA2 variant spreads more easily than the original Omicron and comes with more symptoms. COVID-19 cases are dwindling. Researchers suggest the Omicron variant can reinfect people, putting people at risk for another round of infection and more than COVID-19 symptoms. Experts suggest that people continue to get vaccinated and boosted to lower their risk of infection, especially because those two symptoms can come from other strains of the virus. They saw that BA2 subvariant has been proliferating in Denmark since the start of the year and currently comprises about 88% of all coronavirus cases. But the wave of BA1 that preceded BA2 is offering protection. At least 30% more coronavirus deaths have occurred in the most deprived areas of England since the turn of the year. There is a reinforcing concern that the poorest communities will carry the greatest burden of the disease under the government's plans for living with COVID. This is of the 7,053 deaths registered in 6 weeks after January 1st, and 1,589 were from the most deprived 20% of the country compared to 1,188 in the least deprived 20%. We're ready to once again bring you details about the 49th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, which began today in Geneva, Switzerland.
Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Piris is leading the Sri Lankan delegation to the 49th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council. The session of the United Nations Human Rights Council began mainly focusing on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The United Nations Human Rights Council is also set to hold emergency debates on the ongoing situation in Ukraine in Geneva in the coming days. Addressing the session, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that escalation of military operations in Ukraine will further escalate the human rights violations in the country. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, said that official records indicate 102 civilian deaths in Ukraine following the invasion, but the number may increase in future. Other foreign envoys also made remarks over various human rights violations and global crisis situations, including the Russia-Ukraine conflict during the session. Meanwhile, an interactive dialogue on the situation in Sri Lanka will be held on the 3rd of March. The United Nations Human Rights Commissioner's report is expected to to be presented during the meeting. Then attention will be directed on the written submission made by Sri Lanka, which has already been submitted.
You're watching the news on Rupavahini, and we're now ready to bring you some local news in brief.
2 suspects taken into custody, including a physician, in connection with the recovery of a live hand grenade from the premises of the All Saints Church in Borella, have been further detained till the 14th of next month. The order for further detention has been delivered when the suspects were brought before the Colombo Additional Magistrate Rajendra Jayasuriya today. Minister Basil Rajapaksa has declared open the Niggaha Bridge in Gavaragiriya on the Horana Bulat Singhla Road and also the newly constructed volleyball and badminton grounds yesterday. A sum of 4.9 million rupees has been spent on the bridge and 2 million rupees on the volleyball and badminton playgrounds. The 47th convocation of the Sri Jayawardhanapura University was conducted at the Bandaranayaka Memorial International Conference Hall yesterday. Chancellor of the University, Professor Ittepane Dhammalankara Mahanayaka Thero, has presided over the event. 3,705 undergraduates who have completed degree courses in management studies, commerce, arts, medicine, technology, engineering, humanities and social sciences and applied sciences received their degree certificates on this occasion. Vice-Chancellor of the University, Senior Professor Sudanta Lienage, has also presented degree certificates for undergraduates in the faculties of Management Studies and Commerce yesterday. A photographic exhibition on Sri Lankan tea and daily life of the upcountry community was held at the Cambridge National School in Kottagala, Hatton today. Ambassadors of the European Union have also attended the event. It has been pointed out on this occasion that courses have been conducted free of charge for 40 unemployed youth in the plantation sector.
A story of a technician who has produced by himself a capacity of 230 watts of electricity for his daily power needs has been reported from Puttlam.
He points out that his achievement is a successful solution to the existing power requirements. The innovator is Prabhat Manjula, a resident of Rajanganaya Junction in Kalaoya on the Puttalam Anuradhapura Road. He has commenced the project as a remedy to a daily power requirements in his business establishment. Prabhat Manjula is generating power through solar energy by charging a battery. He has described his invention as an off-grid system. The high expenses of the equipment being used in the electricity system has become a somewhat problem to him. Manjula points out that he is able to produce the system at low cost if the equipment are supplied to him at a concessionary rate. The drama festival is currently being staged right now, and there is a lot of excitement taking place as the lengthy dramas chosen for the final round of the 2021 State Drama Festival are being staged nowadays. The festival will come to an end on the 6th of next month. The long drama named Kanthorua Kanthorua, directed by Sanjeeva Upendra, was staged at the Elphinstone Theatre yesterday. The Pitastaraya long play, directed by Praneeth Shanaka Muramudali, is being staged today. The State Drama Festival has been organized jointly by the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs, Department of Cultural Affairs, the Sri Lanka Arts Council and the State Drama Advisory Council. The National Television is the media sponsor for the festival.
ඔයාට ඕන කරලා තියෙන්නේ ආදර.
අරන දේවල් මතක් වෙනකොට රස අපිරියාවක් දැනෙනවා පොල්. මේ අහන්නකෝ. ඔය දැන් ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්න ලොකු මහත්තයාගේ නම මොකක්ද?
That's a look at local news. When we come back, we bring you stories about Brisbane and the situation with the floods.
That's it for the news this evening. Have a good night.